Hello, hello. How are you doing? I am so excited. It is the month of October. Wow, time is indeed flying. And we have an awesome lineup for you here on Book It. Hey, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's been tuning in. If you missed our previous shows, please make sure that you go like and subscribe to Southeastern Conference web page as well as their YouTube channel, and you can catch all of our shows, our replays. Just to recap, we last had with us, on August the 19th, April Cunningham, Embracing Your Journey. You want to go and get that book from Amazon. Then Myron Edmonds, he did the life-changing family worship on the 26th of August. And then my man, Getting Out. Bryant Stewart, what a dynamic book on loosen the shackles that hold from the idea of Egypt. And then Delroy Brooks, Restoring the Music, just an artistful or artistic rather display of showing how leadership developed in the church just by his love for music and the choir. But his point in his book was that leaders, our young people, have to be nurtured and developed. And so again, I thank you for tuning in, and I thank you for coming here tonight. We have an awesome lineup. I want to let you know for the next 2 weeks we have with us Dr. Christopher Thompson. He has written a dynamic book, Choose to Dream. Wow, I just can't wait to dive into this book. And then after his interviews this week and next, we have Trisha Wynn Payne. She's back at it again with yet another dynamic book, 50 Days to Triumph. You want to make sure you grab that book. And finally, to cap off the month, my dear sister, Tiffany Carter, her book entitled Forged by Fire. Listen, I want to let you know tonight we're going to talk about another young man that went through the trials and the fires in the story of Joseph in his premier book, Choose to Dream. I want to welcome to our viewing audience once again, no stranger to you, Dr. Christopher Thompson. How you doing, sir?
What's up, man? Glad to be here again with the Book It family. So glad to be here, and all the awesome authors that you guys celebrating. So great space to be in. Glad to be here again.
Hey, yes, listen, man, I'm just glad to have you. Just a recap, man, if you can just let us know your book, Choose to Dream, where can our viewing audience go to get your book?
Definitely wherever books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, but you also can go to my website, thinkingright.com/dream, thinkingright.com/dream, pick up your copy.
Hey, listen, man, thank you so much for sharing. And I just can't wait to get into this book. So your book, Choose Your Dream, just give us just an intro of your passion about this book and what it's all about.
Well, I believe that dreams come from God, right? And I believe that God places dreams in our heart because a dream from God is something that God wants to see in the world. And I believe that if we have it in our minds, if God places it in our hearts and in our minds, then that means that we can see it built with our hands. We can see it in reality in our lifetime. I believe that with all my heart.
Listen, dreams can come true. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. So in your book, you start off with a powerful quote, and I want to share this quote with you. Here's what you said. You said, "You are the sum total of all your choices and experiences." You also then said, "All of our experience coalesce with all of our choices to create your current set of circumstances." Tell us, why is that quote so important, and what is it all about concerning this book?
So the fact of the matter is, we are where we are and who we are because of all the things that have happened to us in our lives. Who your parents were, where you went to school, where you grew up, who your friends were, like the various different experiences you have all come together to make you into the person that you are. But it's not just the experiences, but it's also the choices, right? That I chose to go to Oakwood. You know, I chose to get baptized. I chose to eat what I ate for breakfast, and that's why I got a stomachache. You know what I mean? Like all the choices that I made, along with the circumstances that I found myself in, have all kind of come together to make me who I am. But that's not, you know, some of us think about those circumstances and those choices, and they might be negative. I might have made some bad or some poor choices along the way, but that doesn't determine the end of my life.
Okay.
You know, it has brought me to the point where I am right now, but that doesn't mean that this is where and this is how my life will end and how my story remains.
Hey, that's really important. Now, in your book, talking about choices, you know, I just want to read that for everybody one more time. You are the sum total of all your choices and experience. You mentioned in your book you had a very interesting opportunity. Here's what you said. A few years ago, I had the privilege of spending a few hours each Sunday volunteering my time in a juvenile detention center. This was a real deal kiddie jail, as some would call it. You said often I felt depressed talking about when you left, thinking about how terrible it must be to live a life without dreams. I wondered, what happened that robbed them from their ability to dream? What did they endure that replaced dreams with a lifetime of nightmares? You painted this picture about being in a juvenile detention center where you're asking people, you know, what are their dreams? And you discovered something. Tell us what it was that you discovered.
Well, it's heartbreaking, and it's something I don't think I'll ever forget. That here I was with these young people who obviously their lives had been disrupted by, you know, by their own poor choices, by their own negative circumstances, and I was asking them, you know, what their dreams are, what they want to be when they grow up, and the vast majority, like 9 out of 10, said they didn't have dreams. And they said that they all had, and so what happened was they were like, you mean like nightmares?
Mm.
And it was almost like they couldn't differentiate between dreams and nightmares. Like they, in their mind, the only dreams that they had were nightmares. They didn't have any big dreams. They didn't have any you know, things that lofty goals that they aspired to. And it just really broke my heart that, you know, here we have a whole, what it seems like a generation, or at least a whole demographic of people who weren't being challenged and pressed and inspired and encouraged to have dreams and then to pursue their dreams. Heartbreaking.
I mean, you're in this jail and these guys are literally saying, I don't have a dream.
Yeah.
But then you ask them a question about nightmares, and how did that go?
Yeah. So again, I said, well, they actually mentioned it to me. They asking me, you mean nightmares? And so, you know, I'm asking them, well, how many of you guys have nightmares? Well, they all had nightmares, but none of them had dreams. And my what really impacted me, that one of the great responsibilities we have, especially as teachers and leaders, is to teach our kids how to dream, inspire them to dream, encourage them to team, and to teach them how to dream. So I'm very intentional. I'm telling kids these days, I want you to think of the wildest thing you can think of. I want you to think of the biggest, most outrageous idea you can think of, something that you want to do, and then I want us to start planning. I want us to start working on doing this. I want you to get it in your mind what it is that you want, as crazy as big as and as wild as it can be, and let's pursue it with everything that's in us. And here's the piece, we kind of skipped over this, but here's the piece that, you know, I want them to choose to dream, and I want them to make choices that are going to put them on a path towards dreaming. And I want them to recognize that their circumstances right now, we changed the name of the, talk about this in the book, in the juvenile detention, we changed the name of the juvenile detention detention center from the detention center to the dream center, right? That I was telling them this, I want you all to use this time. You're in these difficult circumstances, but use this time as an opportunity to start dreaming, right? And so I want you to think and to begin to believe that it's possible, not just because your choices, making the right choices can put you on the right path and being in the right circumstance, but because you also have the favor of God, that you can trust that God and his favor and his grace will help you along the way. God's grace and his mercy kind of pushes us forward on the path of our dream.
So that's what I was getting to, right? So there was something that clicked in you that said, "Wow, there is a way in order to turn these young men lives, their nightmares into dreams.
Yeah.
That these nightmares can be dreams again." And you said basically that this is because of, you know, the favor of God. So you change your outlook, right, while you sat there in those cells, and you said this is what you told them: you are the sum total of all your choices, experience, and the favor of God covers your life. Dr. Thompson, let it loose.
Yeah.
Tell the audience right now about this favor of God that not only can rest on their life, but that has rested on your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact is, when we look back over our lives, right? You know, I've made some good choices and I've made some bad choices, right? I've had some positive experiences and I've had some negative experiences. You know, when we're talking about circumstances, these are things that are outside of our control. You can't control who your parents are. You can't control, you know, what city you were born in. You can't control what time you were born, what year you were born in. And so there's certain things that you can't control. Your choices are something for the most part you can control, but then God's grace covers it all. And I, you know, when I look back over my life, you know, and there's one experience that I share in a book about being in a near car accident. I'm To this day, I'm certain that angels stopped my car. Like I could have died that day, that night. There is no other explanation for my car being able to stop on an interstate at that rate of speed with snow, ice, sleet, rain on the ground. Then God stopped my car. And when we look back over our lives, and we got a shared experience, which is also in the book, about a test that we were preparing for, that I didn't know
in the middle of the test.
I didn't know anything on Sunday night, but here it was on Tuesday. I had all the answers, even something that we were yelling out to each other.
Basilius.
Yes, as we were running out the dorm room door. So those of you who read the book, you'll know that the person in that story is actually Java Madison, that he was yelling at me about this word that's going to be on the test. And I told him, no, it's not going to be on the test. But I attribute moments like that to God's favor. And I made a pact. I made a promise to God that day that I would serve him forever, because I knew that there was something more than my choices and my study session that made me do so well. There was more that day on the highway than just me slamming on my brakes. That was God. And so in all of our experiences and all of our choices, there is a secret hand, there is a secret mover that works for our good and for our benefit. And do things always work the way we want them to work? No, but God is always working for us and for our good. And so with all of my choices, with all of my experiences, I also have God's favor working for me. And you know, there's that old saying, God plus you is a majority, right?
Yes.
And if I got God on my side, nothing is impossible.
Wow. So you talk about, you know, this favor, and here's where you transition, you know, because you talked about the juvenile detention center, how these young people didn't have any dreams and there were nightmares. And just today I was looking online, and this guy, you know him, you got a God Loves Hip Hop poster there of a book that's going to come out at some point, you know, and I was listening to the hip hop preacher, you know, Eric Thomas, and he had a gentleman who was ministering to some ladies in a detention center, a jail, right? And he was saying to them, I know where you are, I know where you've been, and I know what you've done. And I know how you feel, but I'm telling you, there's still hope beyond the jail, right? And he's inspiring these people. He's saying, because look at me. When I was in jail, I had a dream. It was a powerful. I just saw this today. He said, I had a dream that I would be inspiring people. And look at me now. I'm here, doing this. And it was because he said the favor of God that was on his life. So he had a dream, and you transition in your book to talk about another young man who had a dream, Joseph. Here's what you said, about Joseph. You said Joseph's life was one of extraordinary hardship, suffering, favor, and success. Joseph went from faceless, nameless nomad to slave, then a prisoner, then a second in command of one of the most powerful empires in Earth's history. So just tell us, set us up, because we're coming back next week, right? To talk about this choice, this deep embedded desire to choose to dream beyond what you are experiencing. Talk to us about this Joseph character.
Well, Joseph is a very powerful character and a powerful figure in Scripture. He is the perfect example, kind of like of a rags to riches story, right? And his story is profound because Joseph can relate to the layman, or the regular guy, the average Joe, because even though he was in one sense privileged, his father wasn't poor, but he came from a family that was wrought with hardship. His mother died when he was a kid. And anyone who has lost a parent, especially losing a parent at an early age, is extremely debilitating. But he also came from a family that was really wrought with deep dysfunction. That his dad had multiple baby mamas, and sibling rivalry, and his home was very much a war zone. That his brothers hated him, and his sister, they just did not. The family unit was so disjointed; they just did not get along. The Bible says that they could not even speak a positive word to him. The family was so disjointed that they just hated each other, and he almost lost his life. His brothers tried to kill him, but as a teenager, he had a dream. As a matter of fact, a couple dreams, a series of dreams, and I'm not convinced that he was mature enough to be able to recognize the significance of the dream, but it's the dream itself that I believe buoyed him throughout his experiences. That after he was nearly killed by his brothers, he sold as a slave, and then having to live this slave experience when he had always been the favorite son. So you can imagine going from being the favorite son to being less than human, in a sense, that he was just kind of property. And so he went from being the favorite to being somebody's property, and being forced to scrub floors and so on and so forth. Then he's falsely accused and thrown into prison. And so that you have just this hardship after hardship, struggle after struggle. All these things happen to him. Imagine being in a foreign country where no one speaks your language, and people treat you like property, and you're hated. It's amazing that he was able to maintain his sanity and to maintain his hope. But I believe it was his dreams that he knew. He had this kind of kernel of an idea in his mind, that he knew he was destined for greatness, and I believe that's what kept him and helped him to maintain a positive outlook and to maintain hope in the midst of difficulty.
I'm about to bust, right? I'm about to burst because this imagery of Joseph, I don't know if we quite got it. We know he went from a pit to a palace, but we assume that he came from a very positive environment and went to the pit. But his environment really didn't start off that well.
No.
His coat of many colors was really a cover-up, right?
Yeah.
It was really a cover-up. But you said something here, and I want to just go ahead and let this out the bag. We are tempted to clam up and shut down after having experienced difficulty, hardship, loss. But dreamers, here is the punchline right here. I may loose the preacher and let him preach this, but dreamers never quit. And I suppose that's what you were trying to instill in those juveniles, you know, at the detention center, that dreamers never quit. You were trying to birth in them, cultivate in them dreams versus nightmares. And as we think about Joseph, you talked about here in your book how he was young boy, his mother died, right? I mean, that's not a good situation. You know, you talked about how he had a hostile environment. This was deep. You said basically, you know, it was a family feud between Leah and Ziplah. You know, how do you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so the emotions of the parents were passed on to the children. So the tension between Leah and Rachel manifest themselves in Leah's sons towards Joseph. So even though she died, he got that hate. He had that hate from inception. You know, you talked about, well, didn't he have a father, right? Yes, he did. But you said his father was so emotionally enmeshed and entangled with their mother that instead of providing paternal love and discipline, he doted on and spoiled Joseph. Jacob simply transferred his primary affections from his wife to their sons. And then you capped it and said, it is from this kind of parenting that Joseph appears to have developed a sense of entitlement and a seniority complex. So when you look at the background of Joseph, where he came from, it almost as if because his father gave him a life of, you know, void of responsibilities, his brothers are out working, and he is not nowhere near. He's wearing this coat dreaming, right? You know, it almost like life had to teach him how to mature into his dream. But because he had a dream, you said he did not quit because of the hardship. I mean, just for a brief moment, tell us, if you could, you know, about how dreams help you in some hardships that you experienced that you share in your book.
Well, you know, I'll say, let me first circle back and say that, you know, today I still, when I was working with those juveniles in Pennsylvania, it really birthed in me another dream that I said, man, I really want to spend more time working with juvenile delinquents. And so today I still work with juveniles, and I'm still finding that they need inspiration, that they grew up in environments where they're devoid of opportunities and devoid of real inspiration, and in a lot of cases role models that they can look at and say, I want to be like him. And so, you know, we got to kind of create or help them to create something that they can push for. And I can relate, man, because I grew up without my father. I mean, we were really poor coming up. I remember my mom, and this is in a book. I remember my mom walking me to school because we didn't have a car at the time, and she was just walking and praying and saying, "God, just help me get my baby through this." One particular morning, I share in a book about it was raining, and I remember my mom. We were walking in the rain. I remember my mom praying that God get me and my baby through this, and I remember just growing up in hardship and losing my brother, losing my father, you know, as a young adult. Just when things happen, you know, you tempted to give up, you know, you're tempted to kind of shut down, you know. And I think about my young brothers who I'm with at the juvenile detention center on a regular basis. The things that happen to them have kind of cheated them out of the freedom of dreams, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's
positive
good.
experiences in general. You know, so this is, they're 15, 16, 17 years old. This is the time where they should be learning and growing and experiencing the opportunities that will put them on a path to success. But they're locked up. They're stuck and they're trapped, so to speak. And so what can we do to help them to think about a possibility in a world outside? And the first step is that they got to get an idea in their minds. The first step is for us to get an idea in our minds of possible, what is possible, what could possibly happen. God, teach me, what is it that I could do? What is it that you want me to do? Because if I get that idea in my mind, then I can focus on that idea rather than what's happening to me right now. I can focus on this idea that I have rather than my mom died. I can focus on this dream I have rather than what's happening to me right now, the abuse that happened to me, poverty and hardship. I can focus on the big dream rather than the present circumstance.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, if you're just joining us, we are with Dr. Christopher Thompson, and you need to get your book, Choose to Dream. Listen, if there's anybody out there who may be experiencing a nightmare in your life, I'm here today to tell you, after reading this book, I believe that I can choose dreams over nightmares. We want you to go right now. Right now, we want you to go and grab your copy. I have a few that are left. You can get your copy from secsda.org/book it. We have a few limited copies we've purchased, but if you are not able to get a copy from us, please go to Amazon.com and you will be able to purchase this book. Put Choose to Dream, Dr. Christopher Thompson. Please, please, right now, go and get this book. Download it, Kindle download it. I guarantee you, you will be blessed. I guarantee you that you are going to appreciate what the good doctor has actually put in print for us. And so again, we want to say thank you. And so in your book, Choose to Dream, we're talking now about not quitting. We're talking now about choosing to grab hold of that deep-seated desire for better in your life. And here's what you said: dreamers choose to believe that despite everything that has happened to them, the world around them and their personal lives can be better. Wow. At some point, and by some means, you have to play the hand you are dealt with, Dr. Thompson. You said you cannot pass the blame all day, every day. You can be the kind of person to blame everyone except yourself. But at some point, you have to accept some level of responsibility. You have to take initiative. Listen, Joseph could have made excuses, right?
That's right.
Tell us about that as we begin to wrap up, about how important it is to choose the dream.
So you just imagine, right? Joseph is there and he was sold as a slave to this foreign country. He doesn't know anybody. They're being mean to him. They're mistreating him. Oh, what should he do? And my I'm mindful that this happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Where we find ourselves in a circumstance that's less than favorable, that's not enjoyable, or it's not our fault. Later on, Joseph goes to prison. Neither one of those things is his fault. He didn't actually commit a crime. He didn't actually sell himself into slavery, but he finds himself in that situation. And here's the fact: we were talking about this earlier. Failure is not final.
Yeah.
Failure is not fatal, they say, and success is not final, but failure isn't fatal. Like, there's an old joke: did you die though? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, if you're still here and if you're still breathing, you're still sucking wind.
Wow.
There's still opportunity for change and blessing and hope and benefit. There's still opportunity for you to do something positive, and it might just be that this experience is teaching me a lesson that I'm going to use at the next juncture. So I just believe in my heart that especially if you're experiencing hardship, and I guess that's a word of encouragement right there. If
Woo.
you're somebody that's experiencing hardship, I
Mm-hmm.
just want you to get an idea in your mind about what could be, what is possible. You have, poor financial situation, poor financial circumstances. Well, imagine financial freedom. You're homeless. Imagine being a homeowner. Like, imagine what is possible. And I believe that God can use those ideas, God can use those dreams to catapult us to a desired and preferred future. I believe that God does that for us. I believe that God is the creator of all great and positive and powerful dreams. And I believe he uses those dreams to put us on a path of blessing and blessing others.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, as we close, here's what you said. Joseph could easily have blamed the death of his mother, the mistreatment of his brothers, and the inadequate parenting of his father for his failure. Or he could take the good with the bad and work through the pain. Last quote. He could learn the hard lessons, then trust God for strength, wisdom, guidance, and favor. He could choose to buckle down, work hard, and make good choices. Then watch God do the impossible in his life. Dr. Thompson, take us out of here, man, about how God can do the impossible. Please take us.
Listen, I will say, just from my personal experience, right, that bad things happen, and you can't avoid bad things. You can't avoid negative experiences. You can't avoid hardship. But with every bad and negative experience, that God is always teaching us lessons. God is always giving us pieces, tools, blessings that will equip us and that will help us in the next phase. And I just believe with all my heart that, even when bad things happen, God can still take us to the place where he wants us to go. And oftentimes that negative experience is really just a notch in the belt, if you will, that's going to help me when I get to where I'm going to go. So I just believe in working hard, learning the lesson, and using the benefits that are in the present space, but then also praying, asking God for grace, trusting God for favor. God always comes through. He always does the impossible. And just watching how God will bless even in the midst and despite hardship. I've experienced it so many times that God does what I didn't even think was possible, experiencing it right now, actually. And that if we trust God, God can do the impossible, or what seems to be impossible, in our lives and for us.
Well, listen, I absolutely need the favor of God to cover me in my life. And I pray that God's favor covers our viewer audience in your life. I thank you so much for your time. We're going to be back next week because we got to talk about the hurt in life. We got to talk about the haters in life, right? And how God uses that hurt and he uses that hateration for our elevation. We're going to the next level, with Dr. Thompson. Choose to dream, my man, my friend, my roommate. Listen, professor, everything that goes with it. You've been with Dr. Christopher Thompson. Choose to dream. Please go to Amazon.com. Get your copy right now. Do not go into next week without your copy. We want you to come back having had your copy to hear what Dr. Thompson said. You can get a free copy while they last at sccsta.org/book it. We hope that you join us on next week for another edition of Book It. Peace.